People, Deluded, I'm back again. Thank you very much for tuning back in each and every time and watching me. Now let's cut to the chase. I really don't want to do a video about this because I'm tired of speaking about is Guendouzi staying, is he going, Partey and a lot of these things, but it needs to be spoken about. Obviously yesterday Guendouzi was not involved in the matchday squad in any capacity. Arteta was very quiet, but it's, you know, we can all safe to assume it's in relation to conduct and how he carries himself and stuff like that. And you know, he's been through this before in Dubai. He's got away with it and whatnot. And it's a difficult one when you look at Guendouzi. Now he's been linked with a move away and gone as far as to say he would like to leave. First and foremost, I need to be careful of rumours because we don't know if there's truth in this, although a lot of credible news outlets are saying it. If he does want to leave, let the man leave because he's not Saka, Martinelli or Aubameyang in my opinion. Aubameyang with his contract. That being said, the closest I would describe as untouchable in this team, and there's not really any. I love Guendouzi. You lot saw me talking about him before we signed for him. I think there's a player in there. The problem is he seems like one of these players. He's either going to turn into a very decent player for us or it's going to be a disaster. For him as well, there are a lot of good qualities because for every comment you see about discipline and not listening, there's also comments about how good his attitude is, how much he relishes responsibility, how actual harmonious he is around the training ground and with people. So he probably just needs to mature up a bit and probably for me, just handle yourself in better in situations. Know there's a time and a place, people. Apparently Arteta's got concerns about him. I mean, the ability is there or Arteta wouldn't play you. He started him in some big games, whether he's had to or not. And he's also shown he'll drop him, which, you know, he needs. The thing with him, with Martinelli, Arteta needs to set a precedent to not allow for complacency and lacks of attitude. So when you're hearing these about Guendouzi, Maitland-Niles is irrelevant, but hearing question marks of how he trains, rightly or wrongly, he's got to clip you. Now, he's been linked with a move for 40 million. For me, I can't disagree with turning down 40 million for Guendouzi because as much as I want to keep him and I think he should be a part of it, you know, if selling Guendouzi could fund the could fund the Partey thing, I'd be all up for it. I think he's going to be a player, but it's down to him. You know, he's got to realise, you know, I've got to handle myself in a certain sort of way. I've got to pick my battles. You know, I don't really see anything wrong with the fact that he might have an attitude or maybe that's not the best way, a chip on his shoulder, because all the best players, you go and ask Alex Ferguson, you know, I'm pretty sure he'll say Cantona was a lovely man to work with and a nightmare at the same time. Thierry Henry's teammates say that about him. So I don't think it's a problem. I think there's a time and a place, and I think you've got to, there's no point remaining professional and having composure and being praised if you're not going to act like that all the time, to be fair. And maybe there's an element of complacency in Guendouzi's game because, you know, he came here, he worked hard, he started week in, week out, and he might have been forgiven for overstating his importance and overstating and whatnot. You know, he seems very opinionated like a lot of French players are, but there's a time and a place. And, you know, we just don't need the headache. It's that simple. Arteta just doesn't need the headache. So if it's too much of a headache, he needs to keep it moving. I don't think it's as much as stated. I think he's a good lad. I do think there's been issues. Clearly, he's been left out the lineup. I like it about him when he's doing them things against Brighton. But there's a time and a place and there's a way to do it. And, you know, he needs to start turning up because he's been linked with some big... Apparently, there's some big teams that would like to take him off Arsenal's hands. He's been linked with Barcelona. Apparently, his entourage are angling towards that. If you go to Barca, you're barely going to play, but you need to handle yourself in a certain sort of way, sort of thing. He's been linked with Atletico. He's been linked with Real Madrid as well. He's actually been linked with Manchester United right now, as well as Inter Milan and Barcelona, if I haven't stated, and PSG. So, you know, this could all be paper talk. This could all be his agents angling it. I do think, you know, he is someone that they're probably keeping a track on, but it is what it is in that regard. You know, if selling him can fund Arteta doing other things and doesn't have a headache, then I'm all up for that. But if we had to raise funds, Guendouzi is one of the last players to go. Cause I think there's a player in him. I think if we can just tune out some, you know, just make him more professional all the time on the field, there's little minor tweaks in his game he can make, and he could be a decent player. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but he's contracted until 2022, and wasn't he close to signing a new deal a few months ago, off the back of his first solid season? So when you look at him, you look at Eddie, you look at Kolasinac, and I believe Lacazette, contracts till 2021, Saka and Aubameyang are one thing, but the 2022s need to be sorted out and dealt with, and then 2023s, yeah, because you'll be in the last 2 years, so we need to, are we going to sell him, are we not? I hope he gets it right here, man. I hope he fixes up. I mean, there's always hope because, you know, there was issues apparently in Dubai. He got his head down and he fixed up. Maitland-Niles is now not necessarily in the first team, but he's getting more minutes than he was when he was getting alienated. So there is always a chance for you. You know, Ozil was in, now he's not. So we need to, you know, I'm sure Arteta likes him on ability. It's just to deal with this extra baggage he's coming with. So it's down to him. You know, it's about remaining professional. I mean, he's got it in him, because you never heard half of this crap when he was playing under Emre, or even up until recently under Arteta. So he's clearly a good lad, but it's down to him. And to be fair with you, we're at a point where we just don't need the headache. Like, he could go on and become a quality player one day. People are like, why did you sell him, Arsenal? But we don't need the headache. As much as I want to keep him and I want him to stay, it goes for a lot of players. We're at a position where we don't need the headache. We need to move back to what we're doing. And stuff like that, man. But to be fair, I do think I wish a couple of more of our players was like Guendouzi. Now, obviously, I want to see what he did against Brighton in the game. He just looked sour doing it. But I like that it effing means something to him. Like, he's not perfect, but it means something to him. And I think there's some good qualities here. But it's a time and a place. It's about how you control it. And to be fair, you know, I know he likes to have a laugh and a joke, but when you're hearing he's not necessarily focused, or Arteta's looking back at footage and he's messing about, he's got to fix up, because it's all about perception. Because, you know, he polarizes opinions. Some people at Arsenal, you know, think he can go on and be this decent player, which I do. Some people think he's overrated, etc., etc. And he's not good enough and he's not worth the pressure, which I can't, if that's what you believe, I can't take nothing away from you. But, yeah, man, he polarizes his opinion. Let's hope there's a resolution to this, people. Apparently, L'Equipe have said that Arsenal midfielder Matteo Guendouzi and the London Clubs Board took the opportunity jointly during an internal discipline triggered by the player's conduct, obviously in relation to Brighton, to discuss his future. Apparently, they went on to say that they're open to keeping him, but they're open to letting him leave. So again, you know, that tells you the right offer applies. We might keep it moving with him, people. You know, it doesn't scream like we're going to force him out of the team, but he can be eligible to go. And I think, you know, that's probably why Matt Smith was on the bench yesterday. Potentially why Joe and or Maitland-Niles came on in midfield, because you'd expect Guendouzi could have came on or potentially even started the game. But, you know, his attitude. Arsenal have also been linked with Szoboszlai, who's also again been linked with AC Milan, and allegedly PSG are to have inquired. Apparently, Atletico, in relation to Partey, have said, you know, we don't want to swap in relation to Lacazette. We want 46 million, and Arsenal are prepared to meet that. We'll see how that happens, because Partey's been coming to Arsenal for the last few months and weeks. Dani Ceballos has been speaking in relation to his future. He has said, he more or less said, he's asked on his future plans. He said, next year I want to play, and I can hardly do that at Real Madrid. Now, that's something we probably all expected, but if you listen carefully, has he been told indirectly, either through Zidane or, you know, a loan manager or whatever, that, you know, his chances at Madrid might not happen, or the club have other plans? Because before, the language of it was kind of like, okay, I want to go back to Madrid and assess my situations and hopefully play, if not, keep it moving. And it's changed really, in that he's kind of said, you know, I can hardly play there, so I need to go on loan again. Maybe that's, a lot of that is to do with the Euros next year, and I'm sure he wants to he's been playing all right now, or been in the lineup and stuff, but I'm sure he wants to not kind of start well and then dip and start well and dip. I'm sure he wants more consistency next year. So maybe he's been told about his future. He's also not played down the chance of returning to Spain. He's been linked with Real Betis and Valencia, and not ruled out actually staying at Arsenal in the Premier League and playing for another Premier team. He said, Betis, it's an option. I'm not saying no to any club beforehand. The Spanish league suits me, but I'm also happy at Arsenal, and I owe them respect because of the last 8 games left on the schedule. I don't also rule out playing in the Premier League. So yeah, you know, I mean, that could be something up Arsenal street, whether I believe in it or not. Pay another loan fee. You've got him under a year. You know, he understands Arteta now. He's in the lineup. He's got that exposure to the league, so he's got a bit of experience. You know, him and Partey, you keep him for another year. You've got Partey. Still think we need that guy who can break lines, but Ceballos, might not believe he's necessarily that, but in terms of the personnel, you know, it might allow us to save money and go harder on the centre half or something like that. So we'll have to see what happens in the future. I really want Szoboszlai. I think that's a fantastic signing. You know, he can play in a couple of roles. He can play as a deep line playmaker. He can play on the flanks like a wide playmaker sort of thing. Can play in the most advanced role in midfield, can do box to box, very cultured passer, very good at set pieces, you know, probably needs to develop a bit physically, and positioning can improve in a defensive phase, but he's 18, 19, and he's got the, you know, he can be as good as he wants, people. And I mean, if Matteo Guendouzi goes, that's someone to have to bring in, really, for me anyways, to be happy. But in relation to Guendouzi, in relation to Ceballos, Partey, and anyone else I've discussed, I've got nothing more to add, people. On that note, it's always a pleasure. People, Deluded, I'm out. Comment, subscribe, and do the rest.